Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Series 6 of Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours aims to record 1,000 loiners, that's people from Leeds, over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and tell me about what they do and let me record how this decade affects us. These are long-form interviews meant to challenge the short attention span content economy. That means they aren't always easy listening, but in my view, they are all worth listening to. They all tell us something about our guest, our city, and our time, not to mention something of what it's like to do that job and how someone got into that job. You're helping this project right now by being a listener, and I'd love for you to consider becoming a guest or a supporter of this project. Thank you for listening to this episode. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, this went through several iterations, I think. So when I was really young, I wanted to be an astronaut, which is a fairly bog standard 5-year-old thing to want. Then when I was about 9, I'm of the age where I was about 9 when Top Gun came out. And I'm part of that generation of men who saw Top Gun, was like, sod space exploration, I want to be a fighter pilot. And that sort of stayed with me all my life, actually. I come from a long line of train spotters, but I'm into planes, so I'm the cool one in my family. Nothing against trains. I love a train. I love a 37, but like they're nothing against. They're nothing to planes. So yeah, for a long time it was fighter pilot. Then I think when I got to secondary school, I think I wanted to be a war correspondent. I got very big on that. It was peak early Gulf War as well. You know, you had K-80. Sitting on the deck of HMS Invincible, and you had Martin Bell and all that, and I was like, I want a piece of that. But
and
at the back of my
dead donkey as well.
Drop the dead donkey, yeah, that was all there. But at the back of my mind, there was always this thing that I wanted to be able to draw. You know, I loved comics, and from a really early age, I remember just constantly trying to sort of emulate the stuff I was seeing. So I remember spending hours and hours and hours like copying Asterix books, you know, drawing a centurion, drawing a Frenchman with a big nose, that sort of thing, and never getting it right, never ever getting it right. And I've always had this sort of perfectionist streak, which is really, really unhelpful. And I could always see stuff in my mind, and I couldn't get it from my mind through my hands into a piece of paper, and it wasn't through want of trying, you know, because there's always someone in your life saying it's not a matter of talent, it's not a matter of skill, it's a matter of just grinding it out. You've just got to grind it out. And I ground it out for decades, and I wasn't getting any better. It's like me with guitar, you know. I'm an adequate guitar player, and I've reached that plateau, and I know from being around other people who are great at guitar that there isn't that innate thing in me. There's that certain component missing. I just haven't got that, and that was a real bummer for me. So I think I buried that very deep down. Like let's get rid of that idea. Let's just sit on that. And it wasn't until years later that I found a way round that. I found a way to cheat that out. But yeah, that's sort of been the constant in the background. And as I say, sometimes I've been able to acknowledge that, and sometimes I've just been like, no, we're not going down that road because I'm crap at it, and I don't like being crap at stuff. I really don't like it.
Yeah. Well, and it's that sort of when people tell you to be determined and persevere, and like, oh, you haven't done it. That, like I started with violin when I was in like primary school, and I was like, This is rubbish. I don't sound good. I don't sound
Yeah.
like I want to sound like, and I have to do this all the time and make this awful noise all the time. No, I'm not doing this. It's like if I can't do it straight away, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. I very much minded like that. And yeah, I did try the grinding. I really did try the grinding it out. And it's just not there. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe I've got rubbish hands or something. Or maybe like the connection between hand and brain. Because that's the thing. I had all the ideas and I could see it really vividly in my head. And when I take that picture and I put it on a piece of paper, it was like someone had knocked the resolution back to like 360 pixels. It was like my brain through a very early Nokia phone cam, and yeah, it was just crap, and it didn't look good, and it didn't sit right with me. So yeah, it took me years to figure that out.
You're listening to Series 6, Episode 16, and to my guest, Jack Hurley. This is another Squadcast recorded on the 19th of March, 2025. Hello, colleagues. Jack Hurley is an artist who started later in life and is mainly known for the Rubbish Seaside series of parody travel posters. Originally from the south, he's lived in Leeds for well over 2 decades and was a mental health worker in the city for much of that time. Right, let's do this. Episode 171 of Working Hours with Jack Hurley. So what are you doing now then?
So what I'm doing now is it's only very recently I've described myself as an artist. Like I've been doing this for over 10 years now, but I had trouble with the term artist, and I think that's because I've had modesty driven into me from a very young age. Like modesty is a big virtue, and artist sounded like a very self-aggrandizing sort of thing. You know, here he is, the artist with his grand idea that he's going to unfurl upon the world and everyone will fall at his feet. So I used to dress it up as things like I'm an illustrator or I'm a designer. And actually, I mean, that's pure cobblers, because in terms of illustration, I hate working for other people. And that's a big part of being an illustrator. It's taking someone else's ideas and turning them into reality. And I loathe working for other people. I do it, but I don't enjoy it because I'm always terrified of letting people down. I'm always terrified that, you know, what it is that I'm doing is not going to hit the mark and it's going to be deeply disappointing for everyone, because I'm a terrible people pleaser at the end of the day. And then when it came to sort of like designer, I mean, the truth of the matter is I'm not very designy. I've got a lot of designy friends who are really good at it and they're really talented, and I admire good design, but that ain't me, you know. And the way I work horrifies like a lot of the people who I do know who are designy, because I'm quite instinctual in the way I work. And I don't mean that in a like, look at me with my, you know, this wonderful inspiration brewing inside me. It's just how I am. I eyeball things. I don't know the fundamentals. I'm absolutely self-taught. I just go by, does this make me laugh? Does this look good to me? And I do designy work. I mean, like this past week, I've been working on an album cover for a friend of mine, and that was actually really cool because she knows how I'm wired and I know how she's wired. So like that works in that respect. But yeah, for years it was sort of like, no, I'm a designer, I'm an illustrator. But now I kind of like, I'm getting not comfortable, but I'm sort of allowing myself to admit to myself that actually I might be an artist and what I do might be a little bit arty. But if we take it on a very day-to-day practical basis, so yeah, I do the artwork. I don't do as much of it as I used to, because actually it turns out that if you want to make a living out of this, you've got like a whole load of other things to do as well. So 2 days a week, I work in a shop in the Corn Exchange. I work in Indie Makers, where I sell my stuff as well. And I have to say, I adore doing that. Matt and Yvonne, who run the shop, have been really, really great with me. They've been really, really helpful. In terms of like money coming in, it's great. It bridges the gap between the very precarious world of just relying on art alone, and giving sort of semblance of like a steady income. But also as well, like I love chatting to people. Like I've always been front of house. always be in front of house, no matter what job I'm doing. You know, you stick me in front of people, I'm fine. I can blather on all day, and I really really enjoy it. And I just like being in that environment. Working in the Corn Exchange is ace because actually, essentially, your job is DJing to weird kids, and, and I think that's a really useful service. Everyone needs that person in their life when they're growing up to say it's all right to be a bit odd, and it's all right to listen to weird music, and it's all right to buy weird things. So I really enjoy that, and I enjoy being around people. I found when I started this, so I went through a period when I was just sort of like, I was going hammer and tongs at the actual sort of getting designs out there, getting art out there. It is really lonely. And you do go a bit mental if you just tuck yourself away and carry on doing this. So yeah, it's a nice balance at the moment. It's that nice balance of having something you can sort of rely on a bit, but also at the same time you kind of get the perks of being self-employed, which is if I don't really fancy working on a day I'm not in the shop, I can just slack it all off. I'll feel incredibly guilty about it, and I won't have a nice day. And I'll sit there berating myself all day about why am I not doing things. And the other thing I do as well, we might touch on this later when we get to the COVID thing, but I've got sort of quite a good printing setup that I built up over the years as well. So I make quite a lot of stuff for other artists as well. So that's another little income stream. So it's all a bit chaotic, and it changes quite a lot all the time. But I think this is probably like the most stable place I've been for years in terms of work. Like I feel like I've got a body of work behind me that sells on the regular. Hopefully we'll continue to do so. Like you wake up every morning and go, why if everyone just stops buying all my stuff right now? Like what's going to happen? What's going to happen? But no, so far, it's been going 10 years and people, and that's another thing I like about the job actually of working in the Corn Exchange is I get to see people look at my stuff and I get to see how they react. Because again, if you're just doing this online, it's really lonely. I mean, you do get feedback, but because it's very impersonal, you tend to discount all the positive feedback, and you think, oh, this person's just they're after something. They're after likes.
Well, it's just a click and a like for you and for them, isn't it? It's engagement. It's not.
Yeah, and then you also get the nasty comments.
Which, of course, are true and precise, and they've totally engaged with the work, and
they've got your number. They've got you absolutely down pat. So seeing it in real life is real interesting because no one knows when they come in the shop that like the guy who's done this is sitting behind the desk. And I do have a very fragile ego, so it's really nice to see people picking up my stuff and laughing at it. You know, you see that a few times a week, and it kind of. It keeps you sort of thinking, all right, maybe I'm not quite the massive fraud I think I am. But, you know, those thoughts do go through your mind. So, yeah, in terms of work, I'm in a nice place at the moment. It's a bit of a pickle. When people ask me what I do, I'm like, because, you know, I mean, that took quite a long time to explain. You know, So if you're refusing to use the word artist, it has to be bestowed on you by the arbiters of art of like, yes, he is one of us now. We will give him the medal. I think I've got it somewhere down here. I'll see if I can dig it out later. I've got the paperwork.
It's the amount of time, like you said, you do something for so long, and at this point, you're just like, well, I have spent the past 20 years making art. I guess I'm an artist at this point. I can't really describe it any other way.
But it's a proper. It was a teeth-pulling thing for me. I really, really resisted it, and I guess
because an artist creates things that go in museums and big works, and they're normally like European, and they're at least posh, aren't they? So.
They are, and I think there is like this big distinction between the fine art crowd and like my work is really commercial, and it is really middlebrow and low to middlebrow, and none of us want to think that we're middlebrow. You know, I've come to terms with this over the years, and I remember when I first started out, I remember being outraged that all the cool kids didn't like my stuff and they found it a bit cringy, and like that was like a stake through the heart to me. And actually, over the years, it turns out that the little old ladies who keep buying my postcards are actually they're a really great audience, and they get a real kick out of it. And I have made peace with this now. But for a long time, I was really upset. Like, why aren't you people loving me?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really key point, though, isn't it? Of like, about finding your audience. It's like, I've got to take my stuff where the audience is, rather than trying to get that audience that you're not impressing. You're just like, well, I can actually, other people like this, not the people that I want to like it, but they don't matter, because they really matter in your head. But it's like, no, they don't matter. Take it to the people who like it. Yeah. So I'm just going to ask the question rather than embellish it. So how did you get into it?
Through desperation, mainly. So I moved to Leeds back in 2002, and I kind of washed up into Leeds. A friend of mine had a spare room, and I was just at a loose end. I'd finished uni. I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I knew I wanted to do something a bit worthy. I'd done a degree in psychology, and I was like, oh no, I feel like I must give something back to society. So my first job was with learning disabilities, which I did for about a year, and that was hard. That was hard work. So the client group, like, a lot of them had been in Meanwood Park Hospital for most of their lives. And for people who don't know, Meanwood Park Hospital was a hospital in Meanwood, as the name might suggest, but it was a classic old asylum, specifically for people today that we would term as suffering from some sort of learning disability. But also a lot of the people we were working with were women who had had children out of wedlock in the 50s and had been sent, and they'd gone there perfectly sane, and then 40 years later they're out and they're not. And yeah, it was hard yards, because our job was to get these people out from their residential environments every day. And these people have been in hospital for, like, some of them 50, 60 years. And actually what they wanted was their cup of tea at 6 o'clock in the morning and their breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, the routine.
Yeah. And to suddenly be thrown out into the middle of Leeds with a bunch of people on minimum wage is quite a big ask.
Well, it's literally cruel. I mean, like, the three most stressful things, that you do in life, one of them is moving house.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same thing. And especially at that age, it's hard.
Yeah. And there was a lot of personal care involved. And, like, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of wiping bums, but it was part of the job, and it was part of the job that you had to do in, like, pub toilets and things like that. So I lasted about a year in that job, and then I went through various jobs in the mental health system. So I worked for St Anne's Community Services. I worked for the NHS for quite a while as sort of a budget CBT, a Poundland CBT therapist. This was back when CBT was a big thing that was going to cure us all, and they got a bunch of psychology grads and gave us, like, a year's training. We're like, there you go.
Was it a real job, or was it a temporal?
It was a real job. Yeah. It was a real job, and it was a real eye-opener, and it taught me in no uncertain terms that I am not suited to an open office environment and I am not suited to large organizations, and I'm probably not suited to therapy in general. I mean, I wasn't a bad therapist, I did my best, and I like to think I helped some people along the way. It was fascinating. It was a really interesting job, particularly just in terms of the city as well. I mean, I used to do drop-in clinics where anyone could turn up and have a, like, 20-minute appointment, which at the time was pretty outrageous. There was a lot of people who were not happy about this in the sort of NHS hierarchy, because there was all these terms, all this thought about risk and whatnot. And I did three. I did one in Hyde Park, one in Horsforth, and one in Yeadon. I loved the Hyde Park one. The Hyde Park one was brilliant because, you know, it was chaotic, and half your caseload would be homesick students who just thrown a whitey and thought they had schizophrenia, while the other half would be like people with really quite goey problems. The Eden one I really, really liked because that was windswept and a bit. There's something about the hills up there.
Yeah, a great view over the valley.
It's the moors.
Yeah,
it does something. It does something to people. It puts a zap on them. I had real trouble with the Horsforth one though. I found that really hard work because I'm not saying that people's problems weren't valid, but it was a very, very different set of problems that
harder to relate to.
Yeah, very, very much harder to relate to. And, you know, sometimes you would have to bite your lip and just go, you're a bit bored, aren't you?
Yeah. God, get outside.
Yeah. Just do something with your life. But yeah, so I did that for a while. And then the rest of my mental health career, I worked for Leeds Mind. And that was much more in the community and was with much more profound problems. And I was always much more comfortable with community working. As I said, I never liked an open opposite environment. I think I just hate accountability. I think that's it at the end of the day. And when you're out and about in the community, it's a lot easier to feel like, I'm out here doing my own thing. Also as well, like working in the community, you see people in their natural habitat. While in therapy, it's different. It's a really artificial construct, and people come to that with a certain set of expectations, which are about to be dashed in no uncertain terms by by the spod that's sitting opposite them. But getting back to how I ended up doing this was that I knew that everyone has a sell-by date in the mental health profession, and what tends to happen is you get to a certain point where either you burn out completely because you're like your raw material is human misery and suffering at the end of the day. That's what you're working with. That's what you're sticking.
You're not just selling your time. You're selling your empathy. You're selling your, like, you know, what they call it, your social battery.
Yeah,
it's like
and that's really hard work. So you either burn out from that or you stop caring. There are one or two people I know who've somehow managed to dodge this and have carried on going for years, and like they are quite frankly superhumans. I don't know how they've done it, but like I don't have that sort of metal in me. And I think the time when I really noticed that like I need to be doing something different was when I can't remember exactly what someone had done, but they'd done something like really mad, and I didn't bat an eyelid. Because my sense of normal was just like way out the window. You had to do something like really seriously quite dangerous for it to even register. And yeah, I didn't know what to do about this. Now, I'd always had something creative going in the background. You know, I've been in a band for years and years and years. I didn't really go anywhere, but it scratched that itch. And during the time I was working, I think I started when I was working at the NHS. This was about 2008, 2009. I started a blog called Questionable Time, which was basically it was a report of question time every week, like a sports report. But it was quite satirical. It involved quite a lot of daft photoshopping. And that actually got quite a cult sort of following in the end. And
blogging was massive then as well.
It was, and it was this really weird time where like the press were mad for user-generated content. That was going to be the future.
Yeah, newspapers were like taking people's blogs and publishing them and stuff because they were trying to generate traffic because nobody was interested. Because that's when they came online, really.
Yeah.
Like, that sort of time. It was like, you know, because they were so resistant to it, weren't they? Because it was a whole new industry. It's like, no, we are the press. We are print media. Why would we be online? We sell newspapers. We are newspaper people.
Yeah. And that's actually what happened to me. Like The Independent picked up Questionable Time, and it used to run on their website every week, and it was hard work. It was really, really hard work because so Question Time, you couldn't see it on iPlayer back then, so it aired at like 10:30. Finished at 11:30, and they wanted like between 1,000 and 2,000 words by 11 o'clock the next morning, 9 o'clock if possible. So like I'd be up until about 4 in the morning.
And I would have had this daily rather than weekly.
Weekly, just
Or
weekly.
weekly,
So every
yeah.
Thursday,
Yeah.
every Thursday, you're up all night.
Yeah.
And it was always on the contingent paid work to follow. Spoiler alert: the paid work never followed. But while this was happening, I'm sort of umming and ahhing about, can I keep going in mental health? I'm not sure I can. And one day I was like, well, paid work's going to follow, so screw these guys. I'm off. I am off to be a famous blogger and whatnot. And then I think about 6 months later, I had to go back going, you haven't got any part-time bank hours, have you? Yeah, and so during that time, it sort of became clear that questionable time was A, an awful lot of work, and B, definitely not going to pay the bills. But I couldn't go back to what I was doing, and I'd got quite good using Photoshop doing questionable time, and that's when I discovered there's this thing in Photoshop and Illustrator called the pen tool, where you can draw these really, really elegant curves, and that was the thing that was missing. I realised that I can use this to draw in the way that I always thought I'd be able to draw, and that was the key that unlocked it. And I remember I've subscribed to like the New Statesman and Private Eye for years and years and years, and there was always an advert in the back for this t-shirt company called Red Molotov, who did like funny satirical t-shirts. I was like, I could do that. And I ended up like, I just banged out a bunch of designs, and I just absolutely went hammer and tongs at like the fella who owned it, guy called Vasco Raquel, and bless him, he was like, yeah, we'll take some of your designs. He was really, really good about it, and a couple of those designs did really, really well. And I was like, oh, I can make a go with this. And while I was there doing sort of freelance stuff for them, someone asked for a t-shirt, which would be a travel poster of Cleethorpes with just the words "The Last Resort" on it. And I did that. And I'd always really loved the railway poster aesthetic. And I've always loved propaganda as well. I've always loved propaganda posters. I love art that's got a purpose. I love advertising, and I say this as quite a dyed-in-the-wool lefty, but I love advertising. I love applied art. And I did that first one. I was like, hold on. I can do this. I can make this aesthetic work. And so I did Blackpool after that, and then I did Redcar. And I was like, oh, this has got legs. And so I carried on doing it. And back at that sort of time, on the internet, it was before social media was really, really toxic. And a few of us had figured out that like a really easy way to get your stuff promoted was just find out where journos hang out on Reddit. And just post stuff there, and it was really simple. you just post stuff on like our United Kingdom back before it was a total cesspit, and some journo would just lift your copy and lift your pictures and stick it in a newspaper, and you get loads of sales. So I rode that way for a while, and so and at that point I was able to sort of reduce my mental health work down and sort of the artwork up. I ended up sort of joining a collective in Leeds fabrication so I could sell my work in town, and that's sort of how it went. So it wasn't a sort of overnight thing. It's been sort of 10 years of just very gradually replacing one thing with the other. But yeah, the good news is that my sanity is largely intact, and although it's quite a precarious existence, it suits me a lot better, an awful lot better. So yeah, that's a very complicated way of explaining how I'm sort of where I am today.
Yeah. So in terms of your work then, what you're putting out, you very much, do you touch paint and pencils and stuff these days?
No, I don't.
Is it
I never really have.
Yeah.
I never really. It's funny, like me and my daughter were talking about this the other day. We both loathe getting our hands dirty in any way, shape, or form, And digital art just really clicked with me. It was like this is the missing link. This is the bit that I don't know what it is about analog art. I just couldn't bloody do it, but I could in digital art. I could take that stuff in my head and make not exactly what I wanted, but a reasonable enough approximation that I wouldn't beat myself up about it. For me, that was a real game changer, absolute game changer for me.
Yeah. So why do you have the screen printer then? Were you
okay? So this heat press behind me, it's actually a sublimation printer. If you want to get into really geeky print talk, but this is actually a COVID thing, really. I got really done over in COVID initially because you know, there was that thing with the self-employed support where you had to submit like 3 years of tax returns. So I was out of full-time employment, but like the previous 3 years I had been in sort of part-time employment, which didn't count towards that. So actually my earnings were like absolutely pitiful, and I was getting a percentage of that. So I was in real trouble when COVID happened. But like through a really weird series of circumstances, I was selling in fabrication in York, and part of the deal with fabrication was you rented your space, you rented your shelf that you use. And York City Council had put out a call for grants saying if anyone rents business space in York, they're eligible for a grant. So we all in the shop like spoke to York City Council and said, we rent shelves, does that count? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And off the back of that, I got a really nice grant. And so I went out and I bought a full printing setup, and that bridged the gap for me during COVID. And I still use it today. I mean, it's made economically, it's made what I do a lot easier, an awful lot easier. I'm not having to order in stuff from elsewhere. I can do really short runs of stuff. I can try stuff out. You know, you don't have to buy 500 mugs of something that is never going to sell, because invariably the thing that you think is going to sell, you're not going to sell one of. And the thing that you just sort of like, you knocked out in 5 minutes is the thing that's going to pay your mortgage for absolutely ages. So that really helped that out. And yes, so I really like having this kit, and it's a nice thing to do for people as well that you know. It generates a bit of income, but it's also great for other artists to be able to have that ability just to do the small runs. I want to see what 3 mugs look like. I want to see what this looks like on a coaster. And also just do it in a really simple way as well. I try and keep things very straightforward for everyone. So yeah, that's the other part. And it is lovely mindless work as well. You know, I quite like a mindless job where you can just sit there, just watching any old guff on YouTube whilst, you know, pressing something in the background. That's quite nice. It's quite therapeutic.
Yeah. I mean, there are times when doing data entry is the best kind of job.
Yeah.
Other times, most of the time, it's not. But, you know, sometimes it is. It's great. So you've mentioned COVID there. We'll jump straight into COVID. So I'm guessing you're in that crossover period there, or have you gone full-time artist by then?
Well, I still had like a couple of irons in the mental health fire. I was doing like a lot of mental health awareness training work, but that just went overnight. So that, you know, that was no longer a going concern. No one was going to do that. So in the way, it kind of forced my hand a bit. You know, all that work just dried up. So it was like, well, you're on your own. You're doing this. You've got to make a decent fist of it. And initially,
it's funny it went that way as well, though, because equally there was, I mean, it wasn't straight away, but as we got further into it, there's a big boom in wellness and, you know, mental health, and people sort of like, we're all going to talk about how each other feel now because we're all locked indoors. So you could have really, like, you could quite easily have fallen that way and ended up, you know, doing freelance mental health wellness kind of work.
The one thing that absolutely inoculated me against that is I loathe telephone work. You know, I don't know what it is. I just cannot stand it, and I've never been able to stand it. And it was one of the things, again, that was in the back of my mind about mental health in general, because like there was always this downward pressure of like, you need to see more people, and the way to see more people is you don't go and see them, you phone them up. And I loathed it. I absolutely loathed it. There's something about being in someone's house with them. And it's not just about that you can see them and that face-to-face thing. It's about you get to know the texture of their lives. You get to know what makes them tick. You know, the first thing I do when I was in someone's house, obviously with their permission, was you'd look at their bookcase, you'd look at their CD collection. You know, you get an idea of the pond that this person swims in. You don't get that on telephone work, and I'm one of those people on the telephone where it says got that halting thing going on. You know, someone says something, and that's not what you want to hear from your support worker. That's absolutely the last thing. You know, the key to mental health work is basically to make it look like you're not panicking when you're absolutely screaming inside.
You look like you know what you're doing. That's the whole adulting thing, isn't it? It's like,
absolutely.
Just look like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And I flail around hopelessly on the phone. So that was off the cards for me. So I was straight in doing this, and initially, it was terrifying, and I was sort of doing that thing that like everyone in the sort of art community was doing. Like, I made a colouring book. Here's a PDF. You can download it for £10, please. And like, I mean, people were really good. People were ace about it, and you know, there was loads of support that was forthcoming. I didn't feel very good about that, you know, because I've always been like annoyingly independent, annoyingly to myself. You know, there are times when I should ask for help for things and I just bloody don't, and I don't know what it is inside me, but you know, that's how I'm wired. So it didn't sit very well with me, but it was that sort of time where it was needs must. I've got to admit as well, I also found the early days of COVID incredibly exciting. You know, I'm in the watch the world burn category. I'm a proper ambulance chaser. If I see a blue light, I'm like, dun, 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 let's get behind that. And just to have it all kicking off at once, I was like,
I was laughing hysterically at all the stock markets tanking. I was like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
But the last laugh was on them. So
turns out.
You think that's funny? Oh, we've taken even more of your stuff. So ha ha to you.
But those like initial days where I got quite into going out at night and going round some like the nicer suburbs of northwest Leeds, and it was me and the foxes, and it was great. I loved it, and there's wonderful sort of post-apocalyptic feel to it, which I found weirdly comforting, which probably isn't a great thing, but It was that weird thing. It was that weird mixture of dread and exhilaration until the homeschooling started.
But it was also like, oh my God, something's actually happening. You know, like that feeling of stuff happening it's become so rare. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you saw news in the 80s of like the Challenger blow up or the Berlin Wall came down. They felt like things that happened.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you were little, but you were like, stuff's happening. And then as you get older, it was kind of like, what's really happening? There'd be recessions and stuff. And it's like, sometimes you'd see the effects of them. Sometimes you wouldn't. And it's kind of like, is any of this stuff going on? And then that was like, that's not happening. That's not happening. That's not. Oh, this is, it is. It's happening. Oh, something's happening. But then even while something's happening, everyone's like, yeah, but it's not really happening, is it?
It's really interesting as well, because I kind of had a premonition of this. So I turned 40 just before COVID. And around the time of my 40th birthday, everything had started going suspiciously right. So Rubbish Seaside was doing quite well, and I'd been approached by a small publisher who were like, we would love to make a ladybird-sized book about this. And I was like, brilliant, this is great. And it wasn't so much about the money, because there was naffle. There wasn't very much money in it at all. What it meant to me was like, I won't have to blag after this. You know, I can walk around with this
stuff that somebody else has made, like manufactured, that I can give to people and go, look
at this,
a real thing that other people did.
Exactly.
That I made.
I've got an ISBN number. And like, I remember at my 40th birthday, it was down the Cardigan Arms. My wife had organised this really great surprise birthday party for me, and I'd just signed the deal and I'd nearly finished everything. And I remember thinking, this is about as good as it gets, isn't it? And it was like literally about a month later, I got sent the proofs for the book. And the publishers were like, right, well, I'm coming up to Leeds tomorrow so we can have lunch. And I was so excited about the lunch. That was the thing I was most excited about out of everything. It was like, someone's going to buy me lunch. And the next day, lockdown was declared. And that was it. All of that just went, all cancelled in one go. And I was like, well, isn't that great, everyone? So
nothing for me, eh?
Yeah,
just when I'm
me.
getting somewhere.
Yeah, and it like, you know, funnily enough, I went into a very, very big sulk about that book.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I went into a massive sulk, and the first time I dug it out to look at it was the other day, and I put a few things on social media saying, like, does anyone want a book? Because I happen to have this book just here ready to go. But it was a right kick in the knackers, that. And the last few years after COVID and everything that comes in the wake of that after as well, because it was relentless. You know, I remember being in York, and I'd just done the shift in fabrication, and it was the very first time I'd gone out into the street and the sun was out and people were out and they weren't wearing masks and they were close together and they were spending money, and I was like, we're back on, lads, we're back in the game. And the next day I turned on the telly and there were Russian tanks rolling over the border into Ukraine. It was like, all right, fine, okay, we're doing this again.
This decade could go do one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm finally out of my big sulk, which is quite nice.
Yeah, well, and in time for the sun coming out as well. So,
yeah. But in time for whatever the world's going to throw at us next. And I've got to say that the current situation it's proper mind-boggling. It's 80 years of geopolitical uncertainty, just gone in a month. I've never witnessed anything like that. And again, like, I've got this sort of dichotomy going on where the part of me that loves watching the world burn is like sitting here with a popcorn.
Something's happening. You know, it's that.
Whack some more tariffs on. Go on, see what happens. See what happens. Well, the other half of me is like, this isn't good. This isn't healthy. This is not a good way of looking at the world.
Yeah, but what we were doing wasn't good. This is the other thing. Like, this is the thing. This is why I think there's a huge part of us that does want to watch the world burn. I mean, we are actively working towards it for that reason, despite all of the rhetoric around it. It's like, enough of this. Just end it. We don't care if it all, but like, get on with it. Get on with it. So, I mean, so where shall I go with this? So there's the kind of coming out of COVID and stuff. I mean, normally I'm looking at how your work's changed. I mean, you kind of touched on that. You work kind of completely changed. You've gone through that transition. You're working in a new way. I mean, how did you take the transition, I guess, into... Well, take us through the sort of lockdown then. How did you adjust to that over time? Was it just you started filling more time with the artwork and...
Yeah, we just got this... I mean, there's always that pressure, isn't there? There's always that pressure in the background that, like, you might not know what you need to be doing, but you need to be doing something. So I think initially there was just quite a lot of flailing around, just sort of like, I just got to get stuff out there. I've got to get money coming in, and the only way I really know how to do this at the moment is by making posters and designs. And I made a few like COVID designs. I made one that sort of did really well. It was like a faux propaganda poster, and so that sort of thing helped. But it was the fact that, like, the whole world seemed out of control at that point. Like, everything was in freefall. So when I look back at it now, it seems like a series of, like, conscious decisions I made to do this and to do that. But if I'm being honest with myself, it wasn't like that at all. It was you were just fumbling your way around.
Well, most of the time it was just hanging around.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
you were like directly impacted by something or your work was ongoing, you were just like, because you were sort of on pause. You were waiting for the, like, what do I do? How do I do things? Because loads of people just sort of had a holiday the first
Yeah.
few weeks, few days of just like, oh, well, we just wait and then we'll go back. And then it was like, oh, we're not going back. Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do how do we do this?
And I think for people who were sort of in the art community at that point. Oh, hold on, I just had a pop up. Let me get rid of that. My printer was wanting a driver update there. It just covered your face completely with a window. It's gone now. But I think a lot of people in the art world, me included, like when furlough started and you suddenly had this massive cohort of people who were being paid to do nothing, and they were like, I'm going to start an Etsy business. And like your competition just quadrupled overnight, and the amount of noise on the internet that was suddenly covering up everything that you were doing was just absolutely deafening. And
all your SEOs goes out the window.
Oh yeah. You were just, you again. It was one of those back to square one things. All that hard work that you put in over the years, trying to build up a brand, trying to build up SEO, all that sort of thing. It's like bang, it's gone, and people are being paid to do it. So that was quite hard. And then as well, like my daughter was 5 when lockdown started, and that was a really tricky age for the homeschooling thing, because that's the sort of age where they've got to be doing stuff, but you can't like sort of go, right, here's some stuff, go on and do it. So like the first bout of homeschooling was all right because no one really knew what to expect from everyone, and it was going like, do what you can, do what you can. And so, you do like an hour of maths a day, and that was all right. But like the second time around, it was like, you guys need to be doing 3 hours a day. And I found that, hard work. My wife found it really hard work as well. But that took up an awful lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun times, wasn't it, COVID?
Well, I mean, it's... the other thing was because it's such a long period of time, sort of everything happened during that period because, that's life. It's just such a huge amount of time. But it was very much... well, we don't really talk about it anymore anyway.
No.
But it was one of those where people were kind of like, oh, it was lovely actually, but obviously it was awful. But also... actually, it was awful because, there were points of real panic and real fear and, and really horrible things were happening all the time, all around us and so on. And then it was that weird contradiction of sort of, I said at the time, you watch on the news of like, world's burning, everything's destroyed, everything, like, doom, it's the end. And then you look out the window and it's exactly the same as it was yesterday, and the road's still the same and trees are still the same, and
it reminds me a lot of veteran accounts of like a war, which is like it's 99% crushing boredom punctuated by 0.5% pure terror and 0.5% utter exhilaration. And it did feel like that. I remember really vividly going down when we were first let out into supermarkets, going down to the Aldi on Kirkstall Road, and we were queuing round the block, and we all had our masks on, and it was
and
really,
all distant at that point as well, not queuing next to each other, all apart.
Distant, and it was really crap weather, and it was just like, wow, this isn't right. This is a odd state.
This is some dystopian shit right here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is mental. But again, absolutely exhilarating at the same time. God.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of... I've been thinking recently, so I'm going to use this as the segue into Brexit, but I'm thinking, 10 years ago, Brexit wasn't, it wasn't a twinkle in anyone's eye, really. It wasn't, it wasn't on the agenda. Like 3-4 years later, there's nothing but that on the agenda.
Yeah.
Now you rarely hear about it. So since we have Brexited, has it changed your work at all?
In a very practical sense, not a great deal, because a lot of my work is very UK focused, so I don't do a lot of international sales. There are a few designs of mine that took a really big hit because just suddenly everything just became like massively expensive and hasslesome to send to the EU. On a wider sense, it's quite hard to quantify. Like I've got a couple of Brexit designs that sort of did all right, but it just changed the discourse. And I think Brexit's just like it's a particularly acute symptom of how that discourse has changed. But I certainly noticed that the internet, which I love, like I adore the internet. It's done so much for me in terms of my work and just being able to access things. Going from this lovely, daft, anarchic arena where you could try stuff out, just to this rage factory, just to this environment where the only thing anyone's really cares about is them being right. It just seemed to drain the colour and the fun out of everything. And now everything you make, there's someone sitting there looking for an angle. They're looking for an angle to get angry about. And I don't make stuff for people to be angry about. I've got 2 rules for making stuff. One is it has to be high effort. You gotta put in the hours. And the other thing is it's got to make me belly laugh. Or if not belly laugh, it's got to make me feel something. But I try and leave anger.
It needs to be like an actual reaction rather than just a sort of smirk of like, that's quite funny.
Yeah. No, it's got to be something that hits with people. And Brexit really did a number on that, where the only online currency during that period and afterwards, I'd say, is just rage now. It's the only thing that really, really shifts the dial.
It's fully playground rules.
And it's crap. It's boring. It's dull. And no one's listening.
No.
We're all in our own echo chambers. I know I'm in an echo chamber.
No one's even reading it now. It's just the internet producing and ranting at itself.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think in that respect, the impact of Brexit has been really profound. It has changed its discourse, and it has made the internet a nastier place. It's made it a meaner place, and it's made its primary currency that of anger, that of grievance. And it doesn't have to be like that. We've got this thing which could be, and has been in the past, just this wonderful playground. Just to piss about in, and we're just using it to piss each other off.
Okay, well, I'm going to use that as a segue into social media then. So obviously starting out in this career, this second career, you spent a lot of time social media with blogs and so on. How much time does it take up for your work these days? Do you constantly need to post? Do you just sort of do it very strategically and rarely, how much time does it take up for you, and is that a good use of the time for you?
It doesn't take, it's fits and starts for me because I'm constantly falling in and out of love with the internet at the moment. It depends how I'm feeling when I wake up. Some days I might wake up thinking, I have these things to say and I must say them, and I must say them to everyone through every possible platform that I have. Well, quite often I'm just like, you know what, this is a bunch of toss, all this. And the amount that the internet has changed and social media has changed since I started doing this it's absolutely eye-watering. I couldn't be doing what I do without social media. I wouldn't have had access to that amount of eyeballs. And my social media sort of strategy, it wasn't a strategy, but let's just call it a strategy for the sake of calling it something, was always pretty idiosyncratic. So I found quite quickly that the two platforms that I understood and I knew I had the right voice for were Twitter and Reddit. Twitter, we know what happened. And I think it's a really good illustration of like how problematic social media can be for people in the art space, because I know loads of people whose eggs are all in one specific social media basket, and to a certain extent mine were a little bit. I used to get an awful lot of business and an awful lot of engagement off Twitter, and that went overnight. Like the day Musk took over, my reach just it vanished, absolutely vanished, and you just left there like, oh my god, what do we do now? And I know loads of people who've built really successful careers largely on Instagram. It tends to be Instagram, and then there'll be an algo change, and you're gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. Absolutely nothing. So actually, it's been a very, very conscious thing of mine to put more and more resources in trying to get stuff in a bricks and mortar, to try and get stuff in a shops. Just because, it's really nice to have your stuff in shops. You know, it feels like a real validation. There's somewhere real out there. You can pick it up, you can see it, but it's just so much more robust, and you're not this plaything of some insanely rich person on the other side of the world who just might wake up in the morning and decide to completely capsize your life.
Well, that's it. But the other thing as well is, like, you know, you have to be aware of the time that you're putting in, you know, like the investment of time and care, artistic expression and emotion, and like, because a lot of the time when you're posting something, especially if you're going to take time over it, which a lot of people do early on when they're posting, it's like, you've put some of yourself into that, and you built it up, and whatever you have built, you know, if it's 3 followers or 3,000 or 30,000 or 3 million or whatever, they're not yours. You know, they're part of the platform. It's a privately owned sort of space. It's not yours, but that work, the thing that you did is yours, and you're kind of like, but I should keep that value, and that is of value. You know, it's more of a real value to you for putting the time into it and making it than it is for them, of like, who actually extract value from it.
Yeah.
Like, they don't value it at all because it was just free to them. So yeah, it's a weird space. And it's like, how do you work that? And one of the things that I wanted to do with this specifically was like, I wanted to build an audience in Leeds. I wanted to build an online audience in Leeds, because if the online stuff goes, at least they still exist in the area where I exist, sort of thing.
No, absolutely. And it's really, I've thought about this a lot. I've thought, like, you know, what if I had to be online only? Like, let's say that like all the shops I'm in or whatnot, which isn't a lot, to be honest, but it's enough to keep me going. Let's say they turn around one day and they're like, nah, we've had enough of you, you're out. Could I do this just through the internet? Could I do this just through social media? And I largely conclude that yes, I could, but it would be an utterly joyless experience, and it would take so much time, and I think it would massively impact on my mental health, to be honest. One of the things I found, like, once Twitter was done, was after that period of mourning and what do I do, was it was really liberating. You know, I wasn't having to check this thing, and I wasn't having to see who was having a problem with this and a problem with that and whatnot. So now my internet presence is trimmed down a lot. I'm on Instagram, but I never really understood Instagram, if you know what I mean. I never had the voice for it, which is weird because I'm a visual artist. I should be good at that sort of thing. But I don't know. It's not a platform for mirth. There are some people who do it quite well on there, but it's not its primary sort of thing. So I wasn't very good at that. Reddit's a weird one. I have a very odd relationship with Reddit, because it is by turns like the best thing on the internet and the worst thing on the internet at exactly the same time. And you have to have a very specific voice for Reddit. One of the things I learned very early with Reddit is that Reddit needs to feel like it found you. If you try and impose your will on Reddit, you're not going to get very far. You know, if you say, look at this thing that I've made, isn't it great? They'll be like, well, look at this corporate shill over here who's turned up, you know, and you're dead to them before you've even started. But if you can somehow trick them into thinking, oh, we've just found this thing that no one's found before, then they love you. They absolutely love you.
Yeah, but it's that teenage boy energy, isn't it? It's like, who's the edgiest? Who's the darkest? Who's got the longest overcoat?
Yeah. My fedora is enormous, and my beard goes all the way down to my chest. And so they're like, it's been a very good platform for me, and I've made like genuinely really good connections on there. But I'm under no illusions that I could wake up tomorrow and it's gone like full Nazi or whatnot, because you just can't. You can't discount that now.
No.
It just happens, doesn't it? So, oh, you've gone full Nazi. Oh, well. I'll put you in the full Nazi book then. I am quite enjoying Blue Sky at the moment, but I'm, you know, it's got that very sort of 2016 Twitter vibe about it. But I'm under no illusions as well that, again, that might go down the cesspit. And also as well, I've had that break off Twitter and it was really, really nice. And I don't want to get back into the habit of it just being this compulsive thing that you've got to post and you've got to put that stuff out there. So I'm happy where I am. Where I am in terms of social media is I will remind people that I am alive.
Yeah. Have you got a website?
I do have a website, which is loudribs.com, where, you know, I sell all my stuff, but I don't like, there's not a lot of sort of non-product content on there. And the reason for that is it's next to impossible to get someone to visit a website now. It's next to impossible to get someone to step outside of an app. It's really, really difficult. It's really hard to get people to read over 200 words as well. So that's a bit of an issue. But yeah, where I am now, it's sort of like, remind people that I exist, use it as something to put out new work, but don't stress over it too much. Definitely don't stress over the numbers. Because one of the things I always found as well was that like my headline figures were never that great. I never had like big number followers or whatnot. But I did learn that, like, you know, if you provide good quality daft chat with people, then there will be very loyal followers who will pay attention. If you can make
someone laugh.
Or
that's chuckle. They like your stuff and they're on your wavelength with your humor, then they'll come back again and again, because we do. So if someone can make you chuckle, you're like, oh, go and have a look at that. And
but
so do I have anything on the website that I want to look at? Don't think so. Is there anything else we want to say on social media before we move on?
I think it's going to get worse. That's all I want to say. Yeah, and like
I think it's going to get over, to be honest.
I think we are at that point. I mean, I'm guessing you read the Inshitification article that we all read like a couple of years ago and went, oh yeah, right, yeah, yeah, that's the thing. You've just hit the nail on the head there, and it's real. You know, I see it absolutely everywhere at the moment.
I mean, look at Facebook.
Oh, it's awful.
And you know, and look at what happened to MySpace and each one of them. And it's like, even if your audience doesn't age out of it, that, you know, people move on to different things, and it's like they're always just short term, I think. But they also have longevity to them. You know, people still make money on Facebook. People still build audiences on Facebook.
And it's really interesting the way they've all morphed, because it's nearly 100% been for the worse. Like, you know, Facebook went from like a cool way to stay in touch with your friends and, you know, show off a little bit about your life, to just like this massive playground for radicalizing boomers. And like when did I didn't get the memo about this until it was like way too late.
And I would say that Occupy and, well, Tea Party and Occupy, but like the fallout from 2008 and the fact that Facebook sort of hit big around that time as well. And it, that's when it was generating audiences.
Yeah.
And that's when, and the sort of boomers come in at the later end, but they're sort of coming in through, and then, that's when everyone was like, oh, my parents are on here, I'm not going to spend time on here, or, auntie so-and-so, or your nan or whatever. So, yeah.
I know like a few people sort of who do social media professionally, and I've talked to them about it quite a lot. And there's a large chunk of that industry that's in denial that the party's going to end, and it's going to end really soon. And if it's not just because the platforms have eaten themselves or just become just so horrific that no one can touch them with a barge pole, then AI is going to get you at the end of the day, one way or another. Like, I think pretty much every platform is going to pivot to pay to win at some point, and most of them already have.
But the other thing is, you're not offering anything. You want these pay models, and the only thing that you're offering is like no adverts. But you think of something like Spotify. It's like, if you're paying for no adverts and you're going to listen to podcasts, you're going to listen to podcasts that are on, Acast or whatever, that are going to have inbuilt adverts on them anyway, that are like hard coded in. And then you're going to have them doing product placements and so on within the product itself. So you've got all that advertising. So I think that's kind of a losing model as well, because it's like, I'm paying for it and I'm getting advertising. So what's the point in paying for it?
Yeah.
And I can't believe that they don't offer a sort of like no option. Do you know what I mean? And like Spotify, like the fact that YouTube still has a page where it's like, you have to go to not interested. And so it should just be X, just X, no. And you should be offered something else straight away, not like an empty gap and you reload. Like, the whole thing just is annoying to me. And Spotify has like literally come to the point of pushing things onto you and stuff that you don't follow, or things that you used to follow. And it's like, listen to this. It's like, I don't listen to that anymore for reasons. Why are you making me listen to it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very annoying. I could go on about that, as you could tell, for ages. So what haven't we done? Climate change. So
Climate change.
Yay! Happy joy. So again, looking at how this affects or impacts your work. I mean, thinking of things that we never would have thought could happen 10 years ago, hitting 39 degrees in Leeds was probably one of them.
That was a slap around the chops. I remember, for some reason, I don't know what possessed me that day. I was like, I'm going to take my camera and I'm going to go to Armley Town Street today. So I walked across the valley, which is pretty steep. Got to Town Street, which is usually quite angry anyway, and everyone was even angrier because it was 39 degrees, and we're definitely not in the mood to have their photo taken. But yeah, that was a bit of a wake up call. Now, in terms of specifically my work, like right now, the impact's not much. I sell prints and postcards. There's not a great deal that's going on there. In the longer term, Rubbish Seaside might have to do some more designs as the sea levels keep going up.
You'll have to pick new towns as
yeah,
seaside.
Exactly. Whole new markets opening up to me.
Holbeck Bay.
So there's that. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? There was that report recently that suddenly, like, all the climate change denial narrative has just disappeared. And
well, they've got everything they want, so it's like, we don't even need to spend money on this now, right?
So it's just a suck it up narrative now, isn't it?
Yes,
It's just like, I don't know, maybe wrap yourself in tin foil or something. You might be all right. And it's one of those areas where I feel so powerless that you're almost just laughing at it, because there's so little you can do about it. And I tick all my boxes. I recycle. I don't drive. I very rarely fly.
I've done the things. I've done what you're telling me to do.
Yeah. But ultimately there is this big doom pressing down. But I mean, there's always been a big doom, hasn't there? Like, even in the 90s, when we had the peace dividend and everything, there was always something in the background. It's a funny thing, actually. I keep thinking about it, because I work with like quite a lot of younger people in the shop. Most of our staff are students and whatnot. and the 90s are really big at the moment, and people will ask, what was it like growing up in the 90s? Well, it must have been such a wonderful time. And I'm always cautious about saying it, but I was really bored. So I was at that age where I wanted to be an angry young man. And there wasn't a right lot to get angry about. We got angry about the G7.
Where were you then? Were you down south?
I did most of my growing up in Teignmouth in Devon. I went to school with Muse. And Muse were in the year above me. There you go, little factoid. So I was down there until I was 18. And then I moved to Manchester for university. But yeah, it was that.
Even still, you're like, where is it? Where?
Yeah, I want to be kicking out against something.
And the Hacienda's already closed. You're like, have I missed it? I've missed it all, haven't I?
The boat sailed on that one. So, yeah. So we'd get upset about the G7 and we'd read no logo. And it all just felt a bit wank at the end of the day. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, you could hear about Seattle, but you weren't there, and you Rage Against the Machine on or whatever.
Yeah. And boy, did I try going down that route. And yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I always think there has been a big doom apart from that really weird period. And it turns out that we actually quite missed the big doom.
I think a large part of it is to do with the bomb, though, as well. I think it is because that, that living with that, we can literally make ourselves extinct for the first time, like the real reality of that. And then the fact that we didn't have a nuclear war, came close many times, but we haven't had a nuclear war as yet. And it's that sort of thing of complacency of like, well, it's never going to happen. So, and I don't know if you recognize this change. I've talked about this before on the show, but, sort of 20 years ago, my parents and boomers in general would be like, yeah, you are going to have a much worse time than us. You're going to have a lower standard of living. Like, oh, it's pretty awful. Everything's kind of bad. Global warming was still kind of, oh, yeah, that's happening, but that's way off in the future. It won't affect me in my lifetime kind of thing. And then it's like, now it's like, no, it's exactly the same. What you want about, like,
yeah,
we did the same. It was the same for us.
Yeah.
It's like, we didn't have any benefit or extra bonus or help or anything. And it's that, that whole idea is just gone of like, yeah. And again, it's the sort of, it's not this generation. It's not the millennials. The millennials are a bunch of moaners. And now it'll be like the Zoomers are a bunch of moaners. It's like, it's not any harder for them. It's like, it is. It like clearly is, like 2008 happened. That's worse for them. It was worse for me as someone who already had work experience and like time in workplaces. And it's that like shifting benchmark, rising benchmark syndrome. Like, this is just normal. And it's like, but it was completely different 20 years ago. Even though it was the same, but it was completely different again.
Going back to some of the people I work with in the shop, I'm always really interested about like what their experience has been growing up in COVID and that sort of thing. And like a lot of our staff at the moment are about sort of between 22 and about 25. And you talk to them about like their university experience, and it's like, so I went to university and I paid £9,000 and I got there and I had like 1 week of good fun, and then the whole world shut down and I had to stay in my accommodation for a year and have like crap lessons over a webcam, and then the ones who are sort of at the younger end as well. I was talking to one lass who was 17 when it happened. And I was thinking back to when I was 17 and the fact that I was out all the time.
Just pass your driving test. Like, you just get your license. You'd be out all the time then.
Just doing bad things, just doing really stupid, bad things. And I really treasure those stupid, bad things I did. And they never had that chance. But it's interesting what you were saying about nuclear war as well, and like the bomb, because I grew up with a family who were very switched on to that. Like my dad was concerned. He was all caps concerned about the apocalypse, and we had a cupboard that was full of tins of tuna and no tin opener. Well, my wife, on the other hand, had never once thought about nuclear war until the Ukraine invasion happened.
Amazing.
And she was like, wait, what are they talking about here? And like, sort of, I'd start explaining. She's like, wait, what? What's being?
Let me show you Threads.
We've got a household ban on Threads. We've got a household ban on When the Wind Blows. To be honest,
Oh my God, that is. I mean, I haven't actually watched Threads, but When the Wind Blows, I have seen, and it's
I watched Threads for the first time not that long ago, and believe the hype. Believe the hype. It's every inch as grim. It's on iPlayer at the moment.
Is it?
So yeah, if you really want to ruin your evening, get a bit of Threads down you. But yeah. No, that dichotomy, and funnily enough, actually, yesterday was the first time that my daughter, who's now 10, that she ever asked me. They'd done something about Hiroshima in history, and she was like asking me about the bomb. It's like, oh yes, we have the power to end everything. We just decided we didn't want to.
Don't tell them about Menwith Hill.
No, they're just big golf balls. Just a tourist attraction.
We're not a target. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Everything's fine.
So, I think have we covered climate change?
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah,
we solved that
on the head. Yeah.
Right. Next thing. So, I'm gonna do it in the traditional order. Sometimes I mix up UBI and change, or sometimes I'll mix up all the questions, just to try and keep it a bit interesting for myself. So let's do the change question. This is more difficult when you own your own business, or when you're self-employed. But obviously there's always things that you want, or plans that you like, or like maybe changes to your work, or like how you process any of those kind of things. You can be fantastic, you can be totally realistic with it. So if you could change any 3 things about your work, what would you change?
I've written them down. Look at that.
Well done.
Game. Written them down. The first one's really boring and like a bit impossible and out of my remit, but I'm going to do it anyway, which is commercial rents in Leeds need sorting out. Like it's just mental. Like I've worked in shops for a long time. I sell through shops. I know the numbers. I know what you need to bring in order to make this sort of stuff work. And it's insane how much you have to do just to even stand still. Like me and my wife would love to open a shop. We'd really, really love to, but it's not doable. And I kind of semi-understand that, if they rent out a unit for less than the value of the actual property, then the value of the property goes down, and that means that no one gets a pension at the end of the day. But that seems like a massive market
selling
failure,
it?
doesn't
Yeah,
it?
are you you're not selling it, so let the price drop for a few years, make an investment. Make an investment. What happened to this idea of investing, and that you take time and you build something? I don't know.
Yeah, and you get this weird dichotomy of everyone going, "Oh, the high street's dead. Oh, boo-hoo, the high street's dead. Why didn't we do anything to save the high street?" And then it's like, well, just look at the fact that you've priced shops out of the high street, and
go into town as well. Stop complaining online. Go into town.
Yeah, and that's something I find really hard to get my head around, because I've always been a town person. I've always been like, if I don't know what to do, go to town and just wander around. I love going to town, and I always thought that was normal, and it turns out it's not. And actually,
it's harder after COVID though.
Yeah.
Town is quieter after COVID as well, and it was hard when you went back in. It's like, where have all these people come from? Go away.
Yeah. I remember I used to pop into town during COVID just to check up on the shop and whatnot, and
see how empty it was.
Well, it was like a really weird version of the Warriors, where it was like Deliveroo drivers versus the homeless population, and it was really freaky. It was such a weird scene down there. But yeah, I mean, the high street, it should be. It feels like the sort of thing that we should all want. You know, it feels like the thing that, like, this is what you've been complaining about. Here it is. It's right here. It's that thing. But there's so many roadblocks in the way, and I just can't get my head around why we've ended up in this situation. I'm sure there are people who work for very important companies and who do very important things who will show me a very long-winded PowerPoint about how I'm talking nonsense. But this does seem like the sort of thing that, you know, I was led to believe that, you know, capitalism had this wonderful self-adjusting mechanism, you know, sort of self-writing sort of vessel. This seems
Turns
like
out that's propaganda.
Yeah, it turns out there's just this auto capsize switch that someone's just mashing away, and yeah, see what they can do about that. So commercial rents in Leeds, that's a little beyond my purview, I admit, but that is something that I
mean, you know, the conversation starts with someone mentioning it, so
yeah. It has been mentioned. I'd like it on the record. Jack Hurley mentioned commercial rents in Leeds on this day. I look forward to your response, central government and Leeds City Council. Sure, they're all scurrying around in Whitehall right now. It's, oh my God.
Yeah, but if someone, you know, the next person listens to this and they come on and they're like, you know what, Jack's right about this. I'm going to go off about it. And then someone else, and then pebbles in the pond.
My second point, which is kind of more within the realms of reality, but also isn't at the same time, is it'd be lovely if I had someone who could do the business aspect for me, because I am a terrible businessman. Like I don't have a business bone in my body, and I think I've got this far despite myself. You know, it's one of those things, and like, I know what the problems are. Like, I know exactly what the problems are. I say yes to everything. As I said before, I'm a right people pleaser. I massively undervalue my work. I know this. And it's just this thing that I am incapable. I seem incapable of sorting it out. And there's a part of me that wishes there was just someone who could just come along and just say, right, I've got all your stuff. I'm going to go and I'm going to smash some people about the face until they like do all the things you want them to do, and then we'll both be rich and everything will be all right. Now, I know that can never happen because also deep down I'm also quite a control freak, so I'll be jealously holding on to everything and not letting them have any control over it at all. But in an ideal world, yeah, I would love someone just to take all this stuff off my plate and go and be a bully on my behalf.
See, everyone's like, so they're always trying to sell you like a digital personal assistant, or there's always like, you know, the robot helper or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not what people want. People don't want that. They don't really want, like, we think we want, you know, the servant, but what we really want is the parent. We want them to do all this stuff and look after us and clean up after us. But we also want someone to tell us what to do, and that we're right and that we're good and that we did bad, or that
God,
I
love all these things.
Yeah, just like, you know, what's happening? Where do I stand? What is my report at the moment? What is my status? I can't trust myself because I just make stuff up. Like, tell me what's happening.
And every self-employed person will know this to a certain extent because, like, well, actually, no, maybe not everyone, but I think there's a very broad chunk of self-employed people who, like, as soon as they sign their self-assessment, are going, I am going to prison. You know, this is it. This is it. They're going to be over in the HMRC van tomorrow, and I'm never going to see my family again, even though I've overstated my earnings. And not put down that bus ticket that I used.
Yeah, paid more tax than you know, like the biggest PLC in the country, but still, you're like, oh my God, they're gonna think I've ripped them off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am a proud member of that cohort. That is just, you know, I am an absolute deer in headlights when it comes to officialdom, when it comes to anything coming through the letterbox. I recently, like, we were claiming tax credits for a while, sort of after COVID, and I had to go to the job centre not that long ago to prove that I was self-employed. And it was just this really weird situation where I sort of explained what I did, which, as you found out to your peril, is quite a complicated and convoluted process. And I was getting quite a few blank stares. They're like, right, so how are we going to evidence this? So I was like, well, you can have a look at my website. And so she brought up my website on the thing, and then she started typing, and she's going, right, so home, about, shop, contact. Right, let's open this up. Right then, so print. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, we've got no way of taking screenshots here, so I have to evidence everything by just writing what I see.
It's just pathetic, isn't it?
It's just mental.
Absolutely pathetic. And like we've argued, we've had the discussion on here before of like HMRC, and that they were, they'll send you a letter and they're like, you owe us this much. We want these 1,000 now. You ring them up. You can't get any information out of them. They don't know who you are, what you're doing, anything. And like DWP is appalling. And like, why are these separate? I've got a national insurance number. Why do I need to prove myself 18 times at every government department? Like, we live in an age. Facebook can identify me easy. You can't like build everything around my national insurance number that proves who I am, what national insurance I'm paying. Like, and then, you also own this other thing called Companies House. You own that. You're the government. You own that. Why don't you have a look on there? That thing that you own that's verified, and also like the tax department that you own that verifies things. Why is it on me to go and like prove all that? Like, you've got that information. It drives me insane. And then they're like, oh, efficiency this, and we're going to put AI in here. It's like, shut up. You're just idiots. Just start from the beginning of like, do this properly. Like, you're serious people who want to do a serious thing rather than just a bunch of morons.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, AI is a topic in itself. And I think as the art community, we're in a really, really funny place with it at the moment. I think there's a lot of denial going on. Although you can't say that because it's become like this sort of touchstone that if someone mentions AI, you've instantly got to get your pitchfork out and be like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. While ignoring the fact that too late, toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back in. You can't unring this bell. This thing is happening and we need to adapt to it. You can sit there going, oh, it's cool. I put my work through Nightshade so it can't be copied by AI. It's like, I'm sorry, pal, but you're literally in denial. Your work is being copied whether you like it or not. And
also with like the stock footage stuff, if you're using any stock imagery, stock footage, that it's too late. Loads of that's already AI generated, and like you won't be able to tell the real ones from. I mean, you can with some, but there's loads that you can't.
And you can at the moment, but give it a year or two, you probably won't.
Have you seen the Leonardo DiCaprio and Wednesday from the Netflix Wednesday, like children's video? You know those like Spider-Man and Elsa videos they used to do on YouTube? They do those now, but with like Hollywood stars with deep fakes, and they look good. Yeah. Of like, why is this Hollywood star doing this weird thing?
Yeah.
And deep fakes.
I got into a thing the other day with a scammer. Someone tried to scam me on email. It was a real boilerplate scam. Like, it was quite a funny one actually. It was like, I have a friend with COPD and they really need some iTunes vouchers. And I was at a bit of a loose end in that day. So I thought, I'll string them on for a bit, And we went for ages. I got about 3 days out of them where I was like, I can't tell if this is a 0 or a 1 on the thing. Is it a 0 or an O? Oh, there's loads of zeros and O's in this. Why don't you try every single permutation? And then like, I just had the thought that I could have been chatting to an AI bot for like 3 days there.
Yeah. You're not even wasting a real person's time.
No, I'm just wasting my time.
You're wasting your own, yeah.
But like, I've got no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely no way of knowing. So like, I get the impulse for everyone to rail against like the coming of AI, but I'm sorry, it's too late. That we're already being ridden roughshod over. No one seems minded to stop it. There's not a lot that you as an individual or even as a collective can really do about it, because we don't have our hands on the levers that have anything there. So I think that's going to be, that's going to be a bit of a reckoning. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. Just hope that,
just look at it and go, oh, well, that's what happened with that. Great. And I sort of used to say to people through lockdown, I was like, this is just the point, this is the point where one of the houses on the estate's burning down, and all you've got to do is just sit on the wall with a can of Stella and everybody else and just watch it burn, watch the fire service, try and put it out and be like,
at least make a nice evening out of it.
Well, that's it. It's a bit of entertainment. It's something to do, isn't it? It's like,
go down to Marks and Sparks, get something nice.
Exactly. No, whatever happens around here, we'll make a day of it. It very much feels like that's where we are.
It does rather, doesn't it? Yeah. And as I say, I don't know what to do about it, but I do know that a lot of people are deeply in denial about this and are thinking that we can stop this. And
a lot of people as well, I think, in the media, like, I think we take so much of a cue from the media that we don't like to admit to ourselves. And the sort of puzzled anger, it's like the flip side of, I get it, I get wanting to put loads of good positive sort of messages out on social media and, like, accentuate the good, and it's really nice when you do see messages that connect with you, that are good and are positive, but it is also like irritating because just, what are you so happy about? Just shut up. Really under the surface, everyone's a bit twitchy.
It's really interesting as well, because this isn't new, and it was something that came up again and again and again when I was a mental health worker, which was like, we kind of have this cult of positivity, that you can think your way out of these problems, that if you put your mind to it and you have the right attitude, you'll be fine. And there would always be a certain subset of people that I'd work with who were in a lot of trouble, but would have these affirmations everywhere. A lot of them were really hokey, sort of, you could be whatever you want, all this sort of thing. And they approach these as, this is inspirational, this is something to help me with. But looking in from the outside, actually what they were just a stick to beat themselves with.
Well, it's also like a hypochondriac, isn't it? With like, you've got all the medicines, all the time, and you're always ill. Like, maybe the medicines aren't, maybe the problem's something else. It's not what you think it is. And a lot of it is you're hiding your own, you're trying to will yourself to wellness kind of thing.
It was a really big thing that, I always tried to sort of get people to think that it's not about thinking positively, it's about thinking realistically, it's about thinking like, well, the worst probably isn't going to happen, the best probably isn't going to happen as well, and it will be all right-ish. And in fact, if I had a motto, it will probably be all right is a fairly good one, I think. As you can tell, I'm not a wildly ambitious man. But there's a lot of comfort in that it's probably not quite as bad as you think.
Well, and also, you're not as bad, like when people, you go through periods of self-loathing, or people are having a difficult time with stuff, and it's like, is it that bad though? Really? Like, are you that bad? You're not, insert dictator's name here. Like, you haven't killed hundreds of thousands of people. You haven't killed thousands. You maybe haven't even killed one directly. Like, so why are you beating yourself up so much about it?
And funnily enough, like,
they don't.
They're fine. They're loving life. The one sort of coping mechanism that has been a constant in my life is, if things start getting a bit hairy for me, I start reading Russian history. And I'm like, it's not that bad. It's not -50. The next door neighbours aren't trying to kill me with a 1,000,000-strong army, and I'm not going to the gulag forever, and I'm not having to eat wallpaper paste, and it's I think there's a lot to be said for Russian history, and just why they're not making it here right now. That would be good.
So I derailed your answer there, did you?
No.
One or two of those.
We got through two of them. So I've got one. I've got another completely fantastical one, which we kind of touched on before. And if I could change one thing about my work, and it's not really about my work, but it's about the world in general, it's just to make the internet daft again. Because I really feel we've lost that daftness, and a lot of it's really weird. A lot of the sort of the spawning grounds for that daftness have become quite toxic over the years. Like there was a time, and I'm sure that a lot of younger listeners probably won't believe this, but there was a time when 4chan wasn't horrific. And actually all the memes you saw on other platforms came from one board in 4chan, and it was just this wildly anarchic and quite funny place. I was never a part of that, but I knew where they came from. And then just suddenly it just turned into no, this is a portal to hell. And it's spewing it absolutely over everyone, and that makes me really, really sad, because I don't know, I'm just not, maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but I don't seem to be finding those sort of venues where it's people having a laugh and producing daft stuff just because it's daft. Everything's, I mean, to a certain extent, everything has to be overly curated at the moment just to get it in front of people's eyeballs. So people are forever like reading the tea leaves about what the algo wants this week. And, they'll say that doesn't affect their output or their work, but it does. It colours everything. If you make something, you want people to see it. That's what we're in this game for. I'm in this game because I want my stuff on people's walls, I want it in the downstairs bathroom. I know that that's where my market is. It's downstairs bathroom market. And I want people to have a wee and look at my postcard and go, ha, that was funny. I'm glad I spent £2 on that. That spontaneous sort of just daft, stupid, doing things for a laugh, it just seems so finely tuned now. It seems so, I don't know. I know I'm kind of sounding old man shouting at clouds.
But
here.
No, there's something specifically interesting in that it's all this, when people talk about digital natives and so on.
Yeah.
It's like, no, millennials aren't digital natives. We are. We're the ones that because we have the memory of before it as well.
Yeah.
And so we saw the whole thing. We saw the enclosure of the internet. We saw it when it was dial-up. We saw the change to broadband. We saw broadband get compromised by all the spy bots and spyware from companies and from governments. And, because when broadband came in, when it first started, it was amazing. It was just bang, really super fast. Within 6 months to a year, it's this is fast still, but it's not quite working as well as it did. And I feel like AI's kind of done that. It's come in with this layer of just kind of made the whole internet that bit crapper.
Yeah.
And just gone, everything's a bit rubbisher now and doesn't work quite as well. But also aging online, what does that feel like? Because you're saying there about sort of growing older and the changing spaces. I think the fun things are still happening. They are there, but we've grown out of those spaces to a degree. But there is a meaner overall thing. But is it like you said earlier, is that the trend of what happens with these websites, or is that just is it like cohorts or generations aging out? Because you've got, like the Tumblr crew, who like all the people who grew up with Tumblr, and then they're like, oh, that was a really fun place, and then it kind of got meaner and nastier. But is that just people getting into work and getting cynical?
It's a really funny one, Tumblr. And weirdly enough, last night I was having a conversation online with a friend of mine, and I remembered an old Tumblr site that I used to go to a lot. It's called Ruth and Martin's Album Club. And it was a great idea. It was really, really good. What they'd do is they'd pick a classic album and they'd give you a short potted history of it, which were really good. They were really great potted histories. And then they'd get someone well known who had never heard that album before to review it. And it was great. Chris Addison from The Thick of It, he reviewed Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. He was scathing about it. He absolutely hated it. It's one of my favourite albums in the world. But, you know, it was a great idea. It was a really great concept. And it was at that period where Tumblr was that kind of freewheeling sort of platform, which generally was really, really positive. And it's that sort of thing that I don't see anymore. And I think also as well, there is a big generational divide about that digital native thing that you were talking about. And I think the key experience is that growing up now, you will never have the experience of buying a shit album. You'll
never have loads of experiences. You will never have the experiences of not fucking being online.
Yeah. Yeah. Specifically
of
with
what it's like to spend a Sunday without the internet. Do you know what I mean? And and to actually have to go out to a phone box to ring someone when all the shops are closed. Like all the shops are closed. All of them closed. Closed. All of them. Yeah. Wild. I know.
You're hanging around the chocolate vending machine outside the pier because it's the only thing you can put money
and
in.
It doesn't work.
They run out of whispers because you ate them all last week,
or someone smashed it and robbed them.
But that album thing is like, you know, I remember you'd hear something about a band and you'd go to HMV, which in my case was HMV in Exeter, so that's a half-hour train ride away, and you get there and they'd be
that's
like,
a real event.
That's a real event, and it's like, that's an import only, so that's going to come from Japan. So you're looking at 18 quid for an EP, and we'll see you in 3 months' time. And you have this 3 months to like really build up a head of steam about this record you're going to get, and you get it, and it's shit. And you're trying so hard to like it. You're listening to it again and again and again. It's like, I will find something about this record that I love. And I think not having that experience, just being able to move on to the next thing, you know, constantly just being able to, right, fine, that's out of the way, off we go, rather than the fact that you've actually invested real money and real time and you've been bitterly disappointed in it. I mean, that's quite a fundamental life lesson to learn at an early age. And it gives you a certain value on the good records you have and the good albums and what we'd call content today, the good content. And it was valuable then because it wasn't content. It wasn't just, you know, just stuff happening on another screen. It was a thing that you had to make an effort to get and to get hold of, and it was rare. You know, everything was rare. Like whatever you're into. In fact, I wanted to ask you this earlier when we were talking about the comics and stuff, and you mentioned Asterix. Did you read 2000 AD? I wasn't a dyed-in-the-wool 2000 AD fan, but I was very aware, and I loved Judge Dredd, so I'd buy like the big compendiums of Judge Dredd, like the graphic novels, and if there was a copy of 2000 AD about, I would read it.
So do you remember, 'cause I'm sure they're called IPC, they're people that print 2000 AD, if I remember rightly. But they also had one that they did that was a horror comic called Scream. Do you remember Scream?
Oh, I don't remember Scream, no.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it had like all that sort of, because a lot of their artwork, they did like action stories and stuff as well. It was very, you know, hard pencil lines and stuff. And Scream was full of that. So it had all of those hard pencil drawings, but all around horror. And it was, I read it as throwing back to sort of horror films, but really what it was drawing on was all the horror comics from the 50s and 60s. But I loved that, and it was really rare, and it was one of those you'd find it in the newsagents occasionally, and it was like, this, can I have an extra pound? Can I, please, you know, get this one as well.
Yeah, and it's something that Brits have been really good at in the comic sphere, which is which is very, very sneaky satire. I think a really good example of it is the Games Workshop and Warhammer 40,000. And you get that massive divide between the people who get that it's a satire of like a fascist state and whatnot, and then you get the other lot who are like, Space Marines exterminating everyone, sign me up, pal. I'm into it. Yeah, satire is harder to come by these days, and certainly as someone who used to write satire, I think Armando Iannucci was absolutely on the money when he said like you couldn't do the thick of it today because it just looks like a documentary now. I watched Nathan Barley again recently, and that did look like a documentary, like scarily so. It's really hard to lampoon the world when it's just this absurd. And the thing is, it's like the absurdity is now becoming a feature rather than a bug. You know, people are very, very open about, I'm doing this and it looks stupid and I don't care. And you lot are going to have to suck it up. Well, before that, at least try and pretend that, like, actually, no, we're doing this for good reasons. It's fine. And now it's like, no, we're doing this to piss you off. You in particular. Really weird.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole thing in there of, like, you know, when people used to sort of ironically watch Jeremy Kyle, and it's like, well, you're still watching Jeremy Kyle. You know, he's still getting revenue from that. You're still, you know, you're still eyes being sold to advertisers for it. Like, your ironic detachment is not actually affecting the show. You are just watching it like everyone else, and it's that writ large. You know, it's just, oh well, you're hate watching it. You're still watching it. You're still clicking on it. Are you sharing it because you want to tell everyone how vile this is? You still shared it. You know, we still got the result. We still got the attention. We still got the like. We still got the share.
And it does tap into this like really weird human need that we're all slightly ashamed about. But like, there's a load of people I follow on social media precisely because like they really wind me up. Like, and I love being angry. Like, I'll look at their new posts and go, look at what they're doing. Let's have a look at more of it. Let's have yeah, my farts smell as bad as everyone else's. You know, I'm just as bad as the rest of us. I'm no paragon of virtue. I'm as much as part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, we're all doing it, apart from when we're not. But then,
when we're not.
But if you need to tell us about that, you have to come and join us, and then start doing it to tell us about it, and then you're as bad as us. So you know, nobody wins here. Okay, UBI.
UBI,
Universal Basic Income. So I'm guessing you're familiar with this idea already.
I am familiar with the idea. Yeah.
So would it have changed anything, or if it came in today, would it change anything for you now?
I like to think that it would give me a little more space to breathe, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean that in a like, oh, my life's awful way, because it's not at all. Like, as I said before, I'm in quite a good place at the moment. But there are times when you are aware that the rug has been pulled from underneath you.
Before, and can be again.
And and like has been doing so with greater frequency. So like that's always in the background. Now, I say I like to think it would give me breathing room. I know myself. That I would find something else to worry about. I would find another stick to beat myself with. So I don't think it would necessarily solve that problem, but it certainly would mitigate it to a large extent. But as a general concept, I'm very on board with it. I think this notion that everyone, if you bring in UBI, everyone's going to down tools and just slack it off. I don't think it's going to work. I mean, you see it with lottery winners. They have that year of going absolutely wild. A friend of mine is a neighbour of someone who won the lottery, and she has a permanent skip in her drive for all the Amazon packaging. Just gets swapped out like once a month or something like that. But yeah, if you look at all the stats about lottery winners, it's like, yeah, they have this mad period where they absolutely go off the rails. And then they have this period of deep depression where it turns out that the money hasn't actually changed anything, and all the problems they had before.
Yeah. And any close friends that they had that they bought a house for are not speaking to them anymore because you can't reciprocate that kind of generosity. So they all hate you now.
Yep. And then life kind of returns to normal and you go back to your baseline. And the same's true for people who go, well, for most people who go through really big negative events. They find with like amputees, like quite often they'll have a really, really awful year where they are adapting to this new life. But in the fullness of time, actually, their happiness returns to a kind of base rate. And yeah, I think the concept that, you know, if we have UBI, everyone will just be like, that's it. I am just going to be in my pants, slacking it off for the rest of my life. I don't think it really holds water. And I think it would help massively to balance up where we are as a society, because it is ludicrously lopsided at the moment. It's just comically lopsided the way that wealth is distributed. Yeah, not even close to being anywhere near.
Yeah, and still not proper news. I mean, the extremes of wealth, which shows you how extreme it is. You know, the fact that you can't even get in there. Do you know what I mean? You can't even get it on the news agenda.
Yeah, and just how unfathomable it is. Like when you see those diagrams that sort of explain the difference between a million and a billion.
And a trillion.
And a trillion. And like, you know, when you put up the trillion and the million turns into a pixel, you know, we're dealing with stuff that is so big that we can't really comprehend it.
Yeah. I was going to say something else about something else then. What was I going to talk about? Do I want to talk about? Yeah, so on the UBI front, no, I'm going to ask this. I'll talk to you about it off the recording.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's all my questions. This is the point where I throw it over to you to talk about anything that you might want to talk about. But before I do that, where can people find you and buy your stuff?
You can buy my stuff in Indie Makers in the Corn Exchange, and if you're lucky, I might be, well, if you're unlucky, I might be behind the counter as well. Or you can go to loudribs.com and you can buy all of my tap there. And if you want to see some pretty shonky social media content, then you can follow me at loudribs on Blue Sky and Instagram. Yeah, be careful there. Careful what you wish for. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really. That's the long and short of it.
Excellent.
This has been quite therapeutic, actually.
Good. It should be, or at the very least, you know, if I can get someone to just think about something different in their day for a bit, that's
well. No, it's quite good because doing this, or you know, you send the questions out in advance, and I had to think about this because another problem that I have is I'm a workarounder. You know. I noticed this the other day. I dropped a towel on the floor and I just walked around it. That's what I do. And it drives my wife up the wall, like, why aren't you picking that up? And actually, that's sort of like how my whole life pans out. It's like something's happened. Okay, well, we'll figure out how to work around that. Well, actually, when having a set of questions actually makes you sit down and take stock a bit and think about, maybe it's worth doing a thing or two. So I thank you for that.
Yeah. Good. That's a good result. So nothing else to say at the moment, which is great and fine. We can press stop and we finish pretty much on time. So thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Really good.
Thank you again to Jack for being my guest. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thank you to you, Leeds, for being my subject. You can find Jack at loudribs.com, instagram.com/loudribs, or on facebook.com. I haven't put the rest of that in there. The links will be in the show notes as always. If you'd like to contact me about anything working hours, then you can email me about the show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. If you can donate anything at all, again, that would be really helpful, because then we can keep the audio versions online, and we can also keep the email address open so that people can apply through the email address to be on the show. And we can also, what else do we need to do? Oh yeah, we can keep the website up. Yeah, so each of those are about 20 quid a month, and we haven't got 20 quid at all. So yeah, all of those have to go. We will be able to keep the YouTube versions because they're free and you don't have to pay to host on YouTube. I will be informing my clients, the 2 remaining clients that I have, that their podcasts will have to come down and go to somewhere else shortly. And yeah, it would have been nice to try and, well, I was trying to get to 200 just to draw a line under this and get out of it because it's been an absolute nightmare. So yeah, the sooner this is over, the better. And, you know, that extends beyond the podcast as well, doesn't it? So, okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it's impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there. And try and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited, created and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Remember, Western Studios Leeds Limited when you're ready to start making your content in West Yorkshire. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Bookmark western-studios.com so you can see the latest prices and use my contact page to drop me a message about your own podcast project or working hours at any time from anywhere. Maybe you want or need a podcast host, co-host or narrator for your podcast project. Maybe you just need another voice for one or more episodes of your show. Podcasts are so much more than gossip, book promotions, and marketing for online courses. Podcasts and other audio content get your online brand out there. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to have an audiobook or video course? Want to share your learning, knowledge, and expertise in your field? Want to learn, teach, or raise awareness of something general or particular? Want to improve internal comms with messages your staff might actually engage with? Or do you just want to brighten up the world with some entertaining content? Then make a podcast. If you're making your podcast within West Yorkshire, then think about making it with western-studios.com. Whatever your podcast questions or needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.